As
Yeah.
a customer, I don't want to be slammed by another 3%. The way you create a lost customer is you create a long line. AI isn't a replacement. AI is promoting you to be a manager.
This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicio. Payments used to be invisible infrastructure, but today they've become the front door of the customer experience, shaping how businesses sell, get paid, and ultimately survive. From clunky single channel transactions to seamless omnichannel journeys and embedded finance, the shift isn't just technological, it's a complete rethink of how money moves through a business. In this episode, I am joined by Robert Wesley, someone who's had a front row seat to that transformation. From scaling payments at GoDaddy Poynt to building partnerships across the ecosystem, Robert understands both the complexity behind the scenes and the reality on the ground for small businesses. This is a conversation about what the industry is building and what SMBs actually need. Bob, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. And it's a very exciting topic for sure. I mean, I remember when payments were kind of just a necessary evil,
Right.
and uh, and now it's certainly been embraced as something that not only allows people to complete their transaction, but really enhances the whole business experience and becomes a competitive advantage
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
small businesses, especially from small to large businesses.
Very much so. Bob, you spent decades in payments and commerce. What are the biggest shifts you've seen from traditional processing to today's omni-channel embedded finance world?
Well, I think we've moved from paper to digital. I remember they used to have little charge slips that you put through a machine, and you capture the card number by doing a slip slap or a knuckle buster machine. To today, everything is fully integrated and embedded in not in the merchants or the business's systems from their CRM system, uh, to their inventory system, et cetera. And it's changed the whole experience. And it's actually opened up new avenues. I mean, the biggest problem used to be how do you accept payments anywhere, any place?
Right.
And then now I can do that. I can accept payments anywhere. I can Venmo you right now
Yeah.
and pay you. I could open up a market right away. I could be standing on a street corner. Uh, I can buy something virtually online. So it's really taken the friction away from the purchasing experience. And we saw that a lot in COVID. I think COVID was a transformational type of experience where it moved a lot of companies that had been a bricks and mortar only type of scenario to, a virtual type of company. And, it really expanded their businesses and improved the customer experience as well.
Um, at GoDaddy, you helped build partnerships and scale payment volume. What did you learn about what small businesses actually need versus what the industry thinks they need?
Well, my transformation really started many decades before that at American Express. And then I worked at MasterCard and as well. And, you know, over the decades, basically, I saw the whole need for taking the friction out of accepting payments.
Right.
I think that was the most important thing. I mean, if you think about you don't see it very often, but people will accept cash every once in a while. I
Yeah.
mean, that takes time. You hand over a note, and then somebody has to give you change, and then they have to bring up, how much change they should give you. I mean, today people can't subtract and add as easily, but fortunately, these machines got to do that, and that takes time. And then, but today, then you used to go into a process where, oh, they would accept a card. But back in the old days, you didn't have a way of electronically doing that. You'd have to make a phone call if it was a large transaction. Then we eliminated that and we created automatic authorizations, but it was through a dial-up modem. And you had to make sure that nobody was using the fax machine at the same time you were trying to use the dial-up modem, which was another another scenario. I guess the transformation I really saw, and I don't think consumers really understood it. I was looking in early 1991. There were two transformational, or actually three transformational things. One was that there was these mobile phones that were starting to come about.
Yep.
And why do I have to carry a wallet when I could take everything and put it on my phone? Uh, but the only thing you really had kind of that resembled that was the European phones that accepted GSM cards, which were almost like little credit cards you'd stick in
Right.
to authorize the phone to be used. The other thing was that we were trying to figure out how people could buy online. The internet was just starting, and how do we safely allow somebody to enter their card data in and stuff like that? And then last were smart cards. Were they really smart or or what? And jumping to today, what I really saw is that people wanted to be able to have technology really brought to them. They started to understand. Now we saw this evolution of smartphones and then tablets and whatever, and there was a lot of computing utility that was really brought into that type of scenario, and then connecting it with larger processing models, which are we call the cloud. And how do you start to be able to, collect a lot of data and then be able to do things really, really quickly, and then interconnect it to all your other systems? How do you make sure your online system or your website, connected with your in-store site, so that you could seamlessly create any sort of transaction. So, for example, if I'm in a store and I see a pair of shoes that I really like, but they don't
Yeah.
have my size.
Yeah.
Uh, why not create like an endless aisle where, I can order the shoes and by the way, I don't have to worry about carrying them back with me. They'll just automatically ship them to my home.
Right.
And, they don't have to have the inventory in the store, but it creates that experience. Or vice versa. Today, as you know, I do teach. And today I wanted to bribe my students. So I wanted to buy donuts, but, I have a very early class and I didn't want to spend a lot of time. So I ordered my donuts online and picked them up on the way to school. I
Right.
didn't spend any time. It was very efficient type of transaction, and it was a good customer experience. And as a result, they got my business.
So when you talk about frictionless, is that what it really means in practice for small business owners? Just it's about timing. It's about enabling the customer to get what they want through different avenues and spend less time getting what they want.
Well, yeah, I think it actually takes it another step higher than that. When an owner really is starting to look at, you know, payments, I think they got to look at the holistic approach. So let's look at, for example, restaurants.
Right.
Restaurants today, uh, what do they want to do? They want to turn tables really quickly.
Yep.
They want to, make it really easy for them to put orders in and out, and then they want to be able to create an easy checkout experience. I mean, the worst thing in the world is if you think about the paradigm that happens in many restaurants today. They bring your bill to the table, then you go and you give them your card, then they come back with the credit card, then you have to write the tip on there and you have to figure out what the tip is, etc. Then they have to take that slip and go back and re-enter it in and do the tip up, into the machine. Oh my goodness, I want to, that takes a lot of time and there's mistakes made. So a company like Toast, I think uh, really got it. They built a very easy type of system that was a cloud-based type of system. They integrated payments in it so that now the server comes to the table, takes your order there. They don't have to go and write it down or try to remember it and go post it later.
Yeah.
And so they can tell you, oh, we just ran out of this particular dish, or oh, by the way, you might want to try this, and maybe some of them are even get to a preference says, oh, well, welcome back, Mateo. Uh,
Right.
would you like that vodka martini again with 3 olives? Oh, just the way you always like it, and it enhances that experience. And then when the checkout occurs, they bring it right to the table and they enable you to complete the transaction right then and there. So the efficiency that occurs, just alone by being able to turn tables, eliminate errors and all that makes this payment experience a lot different. And then it connects maybe to online ordering, and then back end, and now with the advent of AI coming in, you could start to analyze from cradle to grave what the total transactions like and what your customers are doing and how you might augment your business or change your business to kind of be able to increase the overall thing. Yeah, so it's certainly convenience, but it's the power of payments and the power of being able to offer different types of scenarios. And I could go into different verticals. I could talk about
Right.
dentists, and how dentists, like not everybody like in the US has a dental insurance, but people want dental service. So now a dentist can say, you know what? I'm going to offer a new program. I'm going to offer you a subscription program. You can come in. This subscription program includes I'll fill three cavities and give you two checkups and stuff like that. And all you pay, instead of paying these large lump sums at one time, you just pay X amount of dollars per month. Now, this is great. Guaranteed revenue flow for the dentist. They don't have to go through all the hurdles of filing different claims and stuff like that, and it makes it more efficient. Now, and so that's another example.
So payments really thought as a feature of the product, and the maybe the product itself, because as you were saying, I mean, you were talking about restaurants, and you remind me of Danny Meyer's book, and hospitality, right? And how to, and being able to, when you are just taking the order or doing the payment or whatever, just bring that up and bring the knowledge you have of the customer, right? Um, it's amazing. I want to ask you this now. Where do SMBs typically lose the most money in payments today?
I think they lose it when they don't really do the research and think about the holistic thing I mean, I think a lot of them will certainly focus on the price,
Right.
right? They'll say, "Oh, you're going to charge me X percentage for accepting all these cards and stuff like that." And they'll kind of go back and forth. And a lot of them will now, the people providing merchant services have come up with clever ideas. They'll say,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, I've got an alternative where you don't have to pay any fees." Of course, everybody goes crazy. So, really? Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to charge your customer 3%
Yeah.
for every transaction. Uh, and you don't have to pay anything because that'll cover it. And they go, okay, that's good. It doesn't cost me anything. But they don't think about the overall customer experience. As
Yeah.
a customer, I don't want to be slammed by another 3% on top of whatever. I mean, it's bad enough you have to add state and local taxes and sales taxes and all that sort of stuff. Now you're going to add 3%. And so I think in some cases where businesses can, they're being foolish. So I'd rather charge 3% more on my product and
Yeah.
negotiate a lower rate, and I'd be able to keep that margin and put it back into my pocket,
Right.
where I could cover my costs. So I think, looking at looking at cost alone. The second thing is evaluating a solution overall in terms of the efficiency and the additional business that you can generate from it. I think is another dimension that you really need to look at. If if a solution cannot provide that sort of capability, then and you're just buying a terminal that you could swipe something in, I don't think it's really worth it. There's much more value add that you can get out of overall experience. I mean, uh, I like, for example, yeah, have you been to a stadium or an airport recently?
Yeah.
So very clever. I remember Wolfgang Puck's restaurant up in Boston, Logan Airport. Uh, they no longer have a cashier. They have or somebody taking the order. They have everybody working on preparing the orders as quickly as possible. And
Yeah.
what you do is you go up to a kiosk
Yeah.
and you can do your ordering there and complete your execution. And so you think about, gee, they've been able to save on labor. They've been able to improve the turnaround of developing the product. Because, by the way you create a lost customer is you create a long line
Yeah.
to take an order. It's called a balk.
Yeah.
Especially very true in fast food type of settings. But if you get their money, that by the way, they'll wait around for a while, but they might not come back if they don't get the product fast enough. But at least you can focus on that.
Yeah. Um, how important is a unified view of cash flow across all channels?
I think it's essential to running your business. If and a lot of businesses do fail because they don't look at cash flow. I teach finance, so I guess this is where it comes in here. And I've seen a lot of businesses fail because they don't um, watch cash flow and how their money kind of flows through their overall system. Um, by taking cash, which was the default method a number of years ago, was actually very inefficient because you had to maintain so much cash on premises to give change. You had to have somebody actually go to the bank and deposit the cash, and it was you weren't getting immediate use out of the cash. Today, in today's digital type of network, we get immediate transfers of money, ACHs, into your bank account, and you can actually go and schedule how things are kind of paid. But actually looking at cash flow, uh, you can then begin to control through payment systems your vendor payments, how quickly you have to make your vendor payments, and how you can keep the cash on hand, or keep the cash in your bank account or for your investments, to reduce, you know, your overall uh, your overall cost of capital. I mean, if you look at Walmart, huge retailer, but you can take a lesson from Walmart. What Walmart does is because they have high volumes, they are very effective at negotiating with their vendors to have the best payment terms ever. And at the same time, they negotiate very well with payment processors to get the best rates that they can. And then they offer some other financial-based products. They're able to optimize that whole thing. So they're the kings, I think, in cash flow. And I think small retailers can also start to do that with the ease of the information. Most small retailers are too small. They don't have accounting departments. They don't have this, that, whatever. But now with AI and all that, you could start to look at that.
So, how do you think small businesses should think about choosing the right partners and avoid allocating?
Well, I think they should come up with a set of criteria, um, and a checklist. And so, what I would really want to do in terms of a checklist is certainly I'd want to make sure that uh, the merchant processor or the person providing the service could, number one, you know, service all different types of payment programs, everything from, obviously all the different card types, to be able to do buy now, pay later types of situations, to prepaid, support prepaid type of products or gift cards, to supporting ACH or whatever. So a breadth there, be able to support different programs of subscription-based programs, or payments over time. But then more importantly, then I think they should say, well, how can I connect it to the rest of my systems? And how can I have it, like how can I connect it maybe materially to my point of sale system if I have bricks and mortar, to my online system as well. Uh, can I be very portable and set up a pop-up uh, tent or something, or go to a market or something like that and set that up very simply. And then how can I start to utilize this to enhance my CRM system? Can I connect it with my customer relationships system? And then what's the overall ongoing cost of ownership of that type of system overall? But I think the last mile is really how do I connect it to my CRM system because I want to look at if I market and does that drive in the customer's things? And I want to be able to measure everything from cradle to grave, from when I do the initial marketing to what the actual response is. And then I can measure it over the course of time. How is that impacting my business?
Very clear. I want to shift gears a little bit right now and talk about your experience teaching finance and accounting. And the elephant in the room, AI, right? So, what gaps do you see in how students are being prepared for a world of AI-driven finance and automation?
Boy, how much time do we have?
All the
Um,
time in the world.
so I decided that I wanted to give back in some of my experience, and obviously, I started out as a CPA working for one of the large accounting firms, and then served in a financial capacity in different businesses, and American Express, and a bunch of different startups and stuff like that, and even in a role, whether I was the chief marketing officer or the head of a sales or whatever, I always thought it was important to understand how you make money and how you keep score. So I try to emphasize when I'm teaching accounting, accounting is teaching you how to keep score, the right way so that you understand what's going on. And finance is understanding uh, how you're doing in keeping score. What's what sort of uh, decisions you need to make, and then I think inevitably we all get faced with financial decisions, and both personally as well as in business. And you know, how do we really address, a lot of those decisions? And so it made me start to think, and I said, I think one of the most important things in teaching or or trying to help people evolve is, if I think about my career, is that you never stop learning. I mean, everything keeps on evolving. Guess what? Change is going to happen. What I did and what I learned in college is very, very different than what is happening today. And so you need to help them instill a process on how to learn. And so that's what my emphasis has been is how do I teach them how to learn? And then how do I make it real? Because I don't want to just teach theoretical, but how do I make it real? How do I make it relevant? You know, we, I think if we really think about it from a teaching profession, we got to become a marketers. We got to sell a willingness to learn, sell them, encourage them to learn. So I've fallen on one particular process right now. And I tell my students, I said, look, if you have any financial, certainly financial, but it's other things too, there's a four-step process you need to follow. One is you've got to identify all the facts. And that's the most important thing. And that's where a lot of people kind of fall down. They don't take time to make sure they understand all the facts, that are being involved. What's all involved in this particular financial transaction or whatever. And then identify what needs to be solved or what's the problem. Okay. And then once you've done that is identify how you go about solving it, the solution, if it's figure out net present value or something, it's applying a formula and stuff like that. And then the last and the most important part, and this is the part that's the hardest to teach, is judgment. How do you evaluate whether you're getting something that's correct or not? Now, I think that having this process is extremely important, especially in this AI evolution, because a lot of people are looking, well, I don't need to do it. I'll just pump it in and AI will tell me. But we know that AI could be right or it could be wrong. So what I try to instill is, AI isn't a replacement. AI is promoting you to be a manager. Whenever you start whenever you're in a new job or something like that, you're going to be using tools. And one of the tools you're going to be using is AI. And oh, by the way, AI is getting smarter and smarter. And it's almost like having somebody report to you. So if you have somebody report to you and you don't know the quality of their output or how good they are or how effective they are, uh, you first need to be able to closely monitor and evaluate the product that they're producing for you. You need to maybe dig a little bit deeper and you develop different levels of trust. But you need to make sure and use judgment to see if they're giving you the right answer, if they've done the right amount of work and done the right process. Well, that's the same thing with AI. So this has really actually become I think, an additional challenge to anybody entering the workforce. Because all of a sudden you're being a manager, you're going to be using these tools, but you better not just accept everything the way it is. You better understand the theory behind it. You better start to develop judgment to tell you whether it's logical or not, or whether you have to dig deeper in order to analyze it. So, uh, that's what I'm trying to teach them as well.
And how is that coming along? What do you see? Do you see because it's easy to fall into the hype or fall into the AI is changing, but you have a front row seat, right? Because you're talking to younger generations, you are interacting with them, you're seeing how they um, and these are generations that are sort of AI native, right? I mean, and the newer ones you get, as you keep teaching, the newer ones you keep getting, they are just used to it, right? Um, but that critical thinking, that judgment that you mentioned, comes from learning stuff in a different way. And I agree with you, right? Understanding all the facts, understanding the problem, the process, and then applying judgment to all of that. It's critical, very, very critical. What do you see, and how are these younger generations
Well, I think it's they're grappling with it and they're trying to figure it out too. And sometimes human nature is take the easy way out.
Yeah,
But I think that the challenge is to show them a way to evaluate whether they understand something or not.
right.
And so that takes me to the next level, was if you cannot explain it or you cannot teach it, then you don't know what it is. So I'll ask them, oh, what's retained earnings? Uh, and sometimes they'll say, oh, I don't know, professor. And then I go and I say, well, I said, the problem, you haven't turned on your engine, engage, drink some more Monster or or a Red Bull and get it going. And I said, I don't care, guess. Because you just got to get them kind of moving. And then they kind of get to the point where if I can explain it, then I really understand it.
Mm.
And it's challenging them rather than just taking in the facts as being able to explain it. So how do you engage them? You see, I think everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to engage. So the way I probably should never do this, and maybe I shouldn't even report this in public, but the way I start my class is I go and I say, listen, you have a couple of choices. You can listen to what I have, and I'm going to help you put money in your pocket, or you could just dial me out, just go through the motions, see if you can pass this class, and I'll see you at the end of a highway with a sign and a tin cup asking for money. And I won't help you prepare the sign or the tin cup. And because somebody's going to take money out of your pocket if you don't know what's going on.
Right.
So it's I think what's really important in in teaching anything is how do you make it relevant? If you can make it more relevant and if you can tell real stories, uh, I think it becomes more interesting and there's a retention. So the challenge is, yeah, I have one of my classes 8 a.m. in the morning. Fortunately, I'm at a military academy and they've done PT or something like that sometimes, so they're not all yawning. But it's you need to create engagement. You need to create interest. What you the element that you're really going for is how do you create curiosity?
Right.
And then the second thing is that you have to, and I think this is where teaching has kind of fallen down, is you have to realize that all people learn differently.
Yeah.
And so you got to try different techniques and whatever to do that. And normally I like to teach in a way that they have to do something along with me.
I love it. So you mentioned three very important skills for the next generation of finance and payment leaders in an AI first economy, or for any professional, by the way. You talked
Right.
about curiosity, you talked about lifelong learning, and you talked about critical thinking and judgment, right? What other skills do you think will define the future leaders? And any final advice you want to give to anyone in the audience that is listening right now?
Yeah. Put down your phone.
Mhm.
Uh, the other thing that I talk about in all my classes is that you're not allowed to use your phone. I said, and let's go through this. I said, so imagine, and I'm in the middle of this podcast, and I'm going, through my phone,
Yeah,
and and uh, and I'm trying to be engaging, right, at the same time. So let's say you're having a discussion with your boss. Your boss is talking to you about something, and you're on your phone.
yeah,
So I go and say, do you think you're going to get promoted over the next guy who actually sat there and listened
yeah,
to his boss? Do you think you're going to close a deal? And I said, how are you going to get to know who your customer is? By texting them?
yeah.
So it's creating, don't forget about human interaction. Human interaction is really important. And you got to stay focused. You can't be distracted.
Bob, this has been an amazing conversation. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I hope that we can stay in touch and do this again in the future.
Sure. Look forward to it. Thanks for taking the time. Nice to have a conversation.